Humanity is in danger as resource scarcity has begun to hit hard, and so humanity must take desperate measures for survival. It is decided to shut down all borders and give every country only a single year to meet their population reduction goals, as now even water distribution has to be controlled closely, and a Department of Citizen Strategy is set up to deal with population control. The department provides incentives for enlistment, but people don't react well to it as arguments are made even on lowering the minimum age. But that sparks outrage from one of the furniture movers, but he apologizes once he realizes that Mr. York is standing next to him. Later, he pours a good bottle of wine down the drain while admitting that it's the hardest thing that he has ever done. He tells his wife Dawn to come see the piano, but she begins crying, so he apologizes and lets her cook. Meanwhile, their daughter Rachel York is in legal troubles for her business. The son, Jared, arrives at the house and gets a call from his wife, Beth, berating him for all the support he gave to population control. She doesn't even let him talk to their son, Lucas, or meet him later due to all the trauma this Dad of the Year gave him. Jared heads inside and is happy to see all the food and tries to taste it, but Dawn scolds him in Korean and tells him to go relax in the living room. York puts on a suit and peels away the protective coating on the window. Rachel now arrives with her daughter Mia, and they greet York, who reminds Rachel that this was an adult-only meeting. But Mia was a wreck after seeing the news, so she brought her along and she threatens to leave with Mia, but York lets them stay and asks about the lawsuit but gets no response. A man with a stick looks at the house from a distance, but he gets cold feet and calls Grace for support. Grace calms Noah down and tells him to go home, and he tries to leave, but Ashley sees him and forces him into her car. They joke about Ashley's failing career in the car and guess about why their dad called them all. Ashley guesses that their dad is going back to work as he cares about his legacy the most. Ashley notices Grace on his phone and asks about her, but Noah panics and pleads with her to not mention Grace tonight, and she agrees but asks him to not keep any more secrets. Mia gets excited to see the two, and even York smiles after seeing Noah. They all get ready to eat, and Dawn sets up the table with the appetizer for all. York leads the toast for a happy family dinner, and he apologizes for not being there for his children. Noah wishes to make an announcement before dessert, but Rachel tells York to give a proper explanation first. York finally breaks the news that him and Dawn have decided to enlist. This shocks everyone so much that even Rachel admits that she should have hired a babysitter. York explains that even though he knew that the population is getting out of control, he had 4 children. And now that the government is talking about drafting, he is afraid of his children's names being called up. Jared admits that they won't be called because as only 1 person per family will be drafted, so York could take their place if somehow one of them gets called. And besides, the rule isn't made for people like them, so they should forget it, but York doesn't accept that. Rachel asks Dawn why she agreed. Dawn thinks that doing this will set an example, but Ashley realizes that this is only about elevating the York name, as none of the children are special, so enlisting is the only way to have the York name remembered. Ashley asks Dawn if York was the one to convince her, but she replies that they decided together, and York defends her. Noah can't handle all this and gets up to leave, but York tries to stop him. Noah loses his cool and leaves after throwing his cane away. Dawn decides that they should continue the discussion after dessert. Protests have now begun erupting against DOCS. Meanwhile, the government tries to compel people to enlist. Noah tries to assure his dad that the government is lying about the enlistment numbers, so he doesn't need to worry, but Jared is skeptical of it. York says that things have gotten worse after enlistment got opened up to undocumented immigrants, which makes Jared try to justify it by listing the benefits they receive and presents it as a good opportunity for people like Noah and asks to be trusted. But York is not sold on the idea, as Jared is defending the same government that denied climate change. York shames Jared for believing that this crisis is caused by Asians and reveals that her restaurant got burnt due to this scare. Jared jokes that he should also see what the deadbeats have to say, after which Ashley accidentally reveals that Noah met his girlfriend at one of the meetings, which shocks York. Noah defends her, saying that she has been clean for 10 years. York sees her picture and finds her lovely, asking what she does, and gets happy knowing that she is a manager at Sports World, and that Noah also works there playing the piano. A happy York leaves to help Dawn. The girls look at Grace's pictures and get excited while Mia is on social media against her mother's wishes. York comes back with a note left by Dawn apologizing for being unable to do it. Suddenly, the DOCS people arrive early. The kids get shocked at York signing up at tonight, so he could be with them. Bob, the DOCS representative, introduces himself and gets excited at seeing York. He jokes about the procedure, but seeing that he is the only one laughing, he apologizes for being rude. He cheerfully enters the house and compliments on the house. They explain that Dawn got cold feet, and as York and her decided to enlist together, they ask Bob to come back later, at which he drags York away to talk in private for paperwork. York goes over the paperwork while Bob compliments the pictures and tries to force York to go along with the procedure. York gets angry at what's written in the contract and refuses to sign. The kids' food gets interrupted by a distressed York. Later, they all surround York lying on bed, who is about to undergo the procedure while Noah plays the piano. York apologizes for not being a better father and divides the estate evenly among all and tells them to take care of each other. Bob first administers the anesthetic to make it painless for York, and then gives him the drug. Later, they wheel out York's body and the kids tell Bob to leave, but he doesn't leave as he needs a second body. After which, Noah threatens Bob out, who leaves at first, but then returns with armed guards, saying they have 2 hours to decide who will take Don's spot. Jared threatens to call his friends in the administration, but they have already scrambled the house to stop him. Bob lets them know that Mia is exempt as they don't get paid for minors, as DOCS contracts out the cadaver collection to private companies, like the one he works for. They used to work in corrections earlier, but prisons emptied out quickly after they opened up enlistments to incarcerated convicts, and that he is just doing his job and asks for Mia. Noah declines, but he gets beaten up. Bob takes away Mia, promising to not hurt her, and Rachel has no choice but to agree. Ashley asks Bob to go find Dawn, but he knows that the chances of finding her in the next 2 hours are low, and he doesn't want to miss his quota. Noah asks about what Bob said to York, and he assures that he only handed him the paperwork, which York didn't sign, as his assets would have been frozen, and he would have been sent to jail, and the thing that bothered him the most was that his name would have been published in the government's cowards list. Jared tries to convince Bob to not do this, but Bob doesn't care, and tells them to decide, and to push them forward reveals sensitive information. He lets Jared know that the woman who he left his wife and child for is having relations with 3 to 5 people, and that his son hopes that Jared enlists so he will never have to see him, but the breaking point was Jared's Google history. Next, he goes over to Rachel, but she already knows everything and gives a knuckle sandwich to Bob, who then leaves the notes at the table and leaves, telling them to flick the porch lights on and off after they have made their decision, but if they can't decide, then he will decide for them. Ashley goes to her dad's computer and reads his emails, and is shocked to see the wire transfer. Noah goes over his notes and gets depressed, same as Ashley, who has a mental breakdown. Later, Jared suggests that Noah should sacrifice himself for them, as even though Noah had the best opportunities, he squandered them. Ashley suggests having a vote for Jared taking Don's spot, which makes him mad, which leads to a fight between the two, but Noah stops them. Noah reveals that the real reason he came was to apologize to them all, as he now sees a future for himself and is clean, and suggests to work together, as that's what York would have wanted. But that makes Rachel angry at their dad. Meanwhile, Bob plays cards with Mia. They see the signal and Bob leaves excitedly. Ashley asks how Bob will decide if they couldn't decide. Bob explains that they will draw straws, which worries them. Rachel asks if they can just deliver a body to him, which Bob finds acceptable and returns to Mia and finds that she has torn apart his cards. Later, everyone has a discussion about what to do, as Rachel points out that even though they are family, they rarely meet each other. And she readies a knife and attacks Noah, but he defends himself. Rachel tries to convince everyone that one less sibling means more money for them all, and focuses on convincing Rachel, as she already knows where Jared stands. Noah thinks that Ashley is strong, but to his surprise, she slides the knife back to Rachel. Ashley reveals that Noah already got his inheritance, as their dad paid the woman's family to drop the charges, which shocks everyone. Jared now enters the picture with his own weapon, and they all gang up on Noah, who pleads for his life, but they are too incompetent, which allows Noah to escape them, but he trips over. The others catch up to him, and a fight ensues, after which Noah tries to head for the door, but Rachel throws a knife at him. Bob staples up his cards while watching over Mia, who goes to the bathroom and cries. Suddenly, he gets the good news that Dawn has been apprehended and they can let the Yorks go, but evil Bob has other plans and orders for her to be taken to headquarters. Noah hides in the bathroom and takes care of his injuries, but has a panic attack. He writes a message for Grace and throws the phone away to get reception. Bob prepares popcorn for them and stops Mia from leaving, who is worried about what the others are doing. Bob reveals that they are probably fighting each other, but Mia doesn't believe him and gets angry about what he says about his mom. Noah prepares his own weapon and heads downstairs where he picks up a fork as his secondary and fashions armor for himself. Suddenly, he finds Ashley hiding behind the door, who pleads for her life and apologizes to him and blames everything on Rachel. She also tells him that they are in the living room and Noah goes there to stop this madness. Ashley wants to help him, so he lets her get behind him. On the way, Ashley spots a picture of him and Noah as babies, and Noah gets all sentimental while she looks around worriedly. Suddenly, they get jumped by Rachel and Jared. Rachel stabs Noah's hand to the wall, but he manages to beat them both to the ground and asks Ashley for help, but she cowardly runs away. Noah frees himself and locks the door while getting ready to fight. The two enter the room and he manages to beat Jared back, but Rachel closes in, and in self-defense, he stabs her in the neck and runs away. Jared stands next to Noah and tries to justify what he is doing right now, but Noah beats him off and walks away. But Ashley takes advantage of this and hits him from behind, knocking him over. She begins to panic, thinking that she ended his life. Meanwhile, Bob justifies his job to Mia, saying it's for her generation, but Mia doesn't buy it at all. Bob tells Mia to consider herself lucky, as they still have order despite most of the world falling to chaos. Bob explains that when they hit their enlistment goal, the great people of this country will be gone, but Mia still gives him attitude, at which Bob throws a tantrum, demanding respect for all that he has sacrificed. Tony gets worried, but Bob assures him that all is good. Bob apologizes to Mia and explains that most of the enlisted doesn't have a big carbon footprint like the rich people, and they were the salt of the earth. But now that the government has offered them $250,000, they are sacrificing themselves happily, which he finds beautiful. He reveals that his wife enlisted because she had Parkinson's, and he disagreed with her, but she won. Bob asks if it is wrong to not want the world to be filled with people like Mia's family, but she thinks that he just likes people's lives being ended. Meanwhile, the others have tied Noah up but are struggling to end him, so think about calling Bob, but Rachel knows that he won't do the deed, but Jared pumps them up, saying that this will be over quickly. Suddenly, they get interrupted by a car horn and a woman shouting Noah's name. It's Grace who wants to go see Noah, and she is recording the guard who is stopping her. Grace sees the others and asks about Noah, but Bob interrupts her and forces the others into the house and Mia into the van. Mia manages to escape the vehicle, but Tony grabs her anyways, and Bob asks him to be gentle. Bob blurts out that he wants a body, which makes Grace worry about Noah and the others, tell her to run and get help, but Bob tells the guards to stop her, at which they attack her. Rachel now thinks that Bob has his two bodies, but he doesn't want her body. He wants the Yorks and tells them to get back inside and finish it, giving them only 15 minutes. Once inside, they decide to end Noah's life, but he has escaped. Suddenly, the electricity goes out, so they arm themselves with kitchen utensils and try to find Noah. They find Noah, but he has lost it, and he stabs Ashley without hesitating. In the ensuing fight, he ends up on top of Ashley, but Rachel tries to talk him out of it, which makes her his target. After which, she agrees to volunteer for the procedure if he leaves Ashley alone. But Jared also has a change of heart and volunteers as he is the oldest. Ashley also volunteers now, but Noah gets mad as he doesn't want anyone to volunteer and decides to go see Bob. Meanwhile, Mia wants to see the others, but Bob doesn't let her. Everyone works together to keep Ashley alive, and they have to cauterize her wound with just a spoon, causing her great pain, which makes her pass out. Their time runs out, so Bob heads inside with Tony, and they find Ashley on the ground and hold the others at gunpoint. Ashley sees this opportunity and attacks Tony, which lets the others move in and seize the upper hand. The other guards now arrive and a standoff begins. Suddenly, Ashley collapses, which distracts her siblings, allowing Bob to break free, but Jared knocks him out. Bob wakes up and sees that he is hooked up to the life-ending machine. Bob says that their children will be taken by the government and will live a harsh life as they have injured DOCS employees. Noah says that they have no reason to leave anyone alive and asks Mia to step outside, so Bob apologizes and offers to just pick up Ashley and leave with his men. But Rachel shows that the body is one of Bob's people. And they get ready to the procedure on Bob, who pleads for his life, saying he can make all of this go away with some paperwork. But seeing that it isn't working, he reveals that they have Dawn at the headquarters, which makes Noah mad. They begin the procedure while Bob tries to justify his life. Later, Noah goes on to become a famous pianist, while his family watches him happily. The cover-up story is that Grace and Ashley were the ones who volunteered.